the second phase of our conference day, in which we have a presentation from Samuel Hickson, who is our trustee, one of our trustees and head of fundraising and neurodiversity awareness street clinics. That's to spread awareness, and he'll be giving his talk on fostering sensory rooms and neuro-inclusive accessibility in sports. So I hand over the floor to you. So whenever you're ready, Sam, feel free to share your screen and present away.
Perfect, thank you, and thanks, Bilal. That was perfect. Thank you. Well, as Mitchell just said, I will be talking about fostering sensory rooms and neuro-inclusive accessibility in sport. Before we begin, I have worked in sport for about 10 years now, and specifically around football and rugby. I reintroduced sensory rooms when I was working at Football Australia. I also recently was working at a university where I started the first sensory room there, and then also currently implementing sensory rooms at my current full-time role at the Rugby Women's World Cup as well. So sensory rooms are really, I guess, close part of me, and I really enjoy working on them and making sure that they're the best they can be. So I wanted to just talk about, I guess, what a sensory room is, how it works, how it supports accessibility in sport, specifically around those who are neurodivergent, and then also towards the end, I also talk about how sport can be more accessible, and also some sporting teams, specifically in football, that are sort of being more accessible as well. So we'll move on to my first slide, which is, well, what are sensory rooms? The definition, according to the dictionary, is just a specially designed space to provide individuals with a controlled and immersive sensory experience. And it also can include lights, colors, sounds, sensory soft play resources, and aromas. And it's usually within an enclosed space that allows it to be explored and interacted with without any risk to the individual. That's kind of the dictionary description. And a lot of the times it is quite close to that. Specifically in sport, it's usually a room at a stadium. Most teams that I've worked with or around have got their sensory room in a corporate box of sorts that overlooks the field, because you want to make sure that those that are part of that sensory room can still watch the game and can still be a part of the experience, just without all the crazy lights and sounds of a typical sports game. It'll include lots of different things. We'll see later on, but Chelsea have like a mini little pitch where you can kick a ball around. They've got some other like football related things, but then they also have like bean bags and bubbles and different colored lights, etc. So it is quite diverse in terms of how sensory rooms look. It can be as simple as just a quiet space away from everyone that people can sit in and watch the game, and they can be as complicated or as busy as the ones that Chelsea, Wembley, Rugby Women's World Cup, etc. have as well. So it definitely isn't defined just specifically on this. It kind of is defined on whatever works for the individuals that are using that room. So here are some examples of sensory rooms. You can see there's an example of a Chelsea one in the left-hand corner, West Ham down below, and there was a Wembley photo, but it clearly hasn't loaded, so that's fine. But as you can see, they've kind of got some bean bags. It's enclosed. They've got some other things, like the West Ham one has some bubbles there on the right-hand side, and it's just a space that people can relax in. A lot of the time, sensory rooms are used by families. The parents will bring their children that are neurodivergent, and the children will play and watch the game and etc. And the parents will be able to know that their children are in a safe environment where they can still enjoy the sporting game and not have to worry about their children, getting stressed out, or reacting to the lights and sounds of the sporting matches as well. So some benefits of sensory rooms. So there's a reduced sensory overload. So like I said before, sporting venues are very loud and scary places. You've got chanting, you've got, potentially loud bangs from fireworks or pyro. You've got a lot of loud music, especially if you're watching sports that have stings when there's a goal scored or, a run scored, etc. And providing a sensory room can just have a way to sort of escape that sensory overload. A lot of the times it'll be all you pretty much won't be able to hear any noise at all. So they'll work in that way. And if they do let in sound, they usually provide covers for people's ears so they can put that on and they don't have to worry about listening to those noises. It also promotes community engagement. So a lot of the clubs and sporting tournaments I've worked with have engaged with the local community, disability groups and advocacy organizations to build and staff these sensory rooms. And it really builds a positive relationship with the community around the club or the tournament. If you're, going out to people and providing them with this service and making your club or sport more accessible, it really shows, and a lot of people have a really positive reaction to that. When clubs or tournaments don't have a sensory room, there can be a lot of negativity around that, and people can get quite upset about the fact that they're not making their sport or club accessible. And I think it's really important to have that community engagement, and then also it increases enjoyment. So someone who experiences sensory overload may avoid going to sporting games, and these rooms sort of encourage attendance and positive fan experience. So I know a lot of people that I've worked with, that the matches that they've come to, the games where we've had a sensory room, it's been their first sporting game that they've been to because they just haven't been prepared to go and face the loud and scary stadiums, and being able to know that there is a space for them that caters their needs and allows them to participate in a sport that they love to be a part of, really gives the fans a positive experience, and that leads to to positive feedback for your club or tournament as well. So why is being neuro-inclusive important in sport? So a lot of these will kind of double up to the last slide, but the first point is it promotes equal opportunity. Any clubs or tournaments that are neuro-inclusive provide a space for people who are neurodivergent to come and watch their sport, and that encourages participation in sport, and that then promotes equal opportunity. It's really difficult for people who are neurodivergent to participate in sport if they can't even go and watch the games and be a part of it, support their local team, etc. And I think it's really important that specifically sporting clubs, from grassroots up into professional, are neuro-inclusive because it promotes that equal opportunity. Same as your mate that plays with you at the local football club, you get the same opportunity to go and watch that sporting match at Stamford Bridge, for example, because you get the opportunity to be in that sensory room. It also enhances team diversity and innovation as well. So, a lot of the times the people that will go and watch matches in a professional sporting sense will also go and participate in sport, and that enhances team diversity across the grassroots level. So like what Bilal said before with personality, there are so many different personalities across every single person that plays in sport, and it's so important to have that diversity and have those strengths and weaknesses. My strengths and my weaknesses might be completely different to someone else who is neurodivergent, and to be able to have them on my team and to complement me when I'm playing sport, for example, is really important, and that's a great way to to enhance your team diversity as well. It improves mental health and well-being. So again, for those people that are neurodivergent, that may not feel comfortable participating in sport because they can't go watch their team play, and which means they haven't been encouraged to go and participate, it could impact their mental health and well-being as well. And being neuro-inclusive just encourages them to get out and exercise, but also go and have fun at sporting matches and support their the team that they love, and that improves your mental health and well-being, unless you're a Manchester United fan, because it's very tough at the moment with our results. And then finally, it also reflects some broader social values of inclusion and respect as well. You know, you can have a sensory room just because it fills a quota and it ticks a box to say that you're inclusive. But you can also go to, to a lot more lengths to reflect those, values of inclusion and respect. And I think having, sensory rooms and being inclusive in sport is really important to show that inclusion. And people really appreciate it when teams and tournaments, etc., are inclusive. Perfect. So, what are some more ways that sports can be more accessible? Obviously, improve funding for inclusive programs. This is a big one that we're starting to see come through at the moment, which is really exciting. And there are a couple case studies at the end, which I'll go through, that show there's been some funding come through, which is fantastic. But it's really important for government, for organizations that are able to fund these inclusive programs, to be able to put money towards it, so the clubs and stuff can provide programs to people that are neurodivergent, or at least make them inclusive for those people, so they can be a part of it. Better training for coaches and staff. This is another big one that a lot of coaches and staff, especially at a grassroots level, aren't really prepared to coach a person that is neurodiverse. It's different to coaching and training people that aren't neurodivergent, and I think it's really important to have that training so that they're prepared and they know what the differences are, and that also is it sort of funnels you into the same thing of just providing an inclusive experience. If you have coaches and staff that can train people that are neurodiverse the same way as they train people that aren't, it provides a more inclusive environment for those people, and they feel like they're on the same playing field as the rest of them. Also, enhanced transport and facility access. This is specifically more so around professional clubs and tournaments, but also you can look at it from a grassroots point of view as well. But just providing better transport options, especially for people who are neurodiverse, or people that have a disability, for example, and being able to get to the venue. Same with facility access. I'll speak a little bit about it when I come to Wrexham, but Wrexham provide a special access into their stadium for people who are neurodivergent. That means that they don't have to line up with a full crowd. It's not as loud or confronting for those people, and they can enter through a side entrance where it's a lot more quieter, and that's a really good way, a really simple way just to improve the facility access as well. And then the last one is just inclusive promotion and outreach as well. So making sure that when you're promoting your sports, for example, this slideshow that I've got, the text is I googled it and made sure that the text was fine for people with dyslexia, for example, and it makes it easier for them to read. So again, making sure that your promotional material and outreach stuff is inclusive as well. So here's a little thing about Chelsea's sensory room. So Stamford Bridge has one sensory room at the stadium. It can fit up to 12 people, and that's including 2 with a wheelchair. And it's also fitted with a wider range of equipment designed to help people with accessibility needs. You can watch the game from inside or from the dedicated seats outside. What I might do, because the next one is a little video, I might just stop sharing for a second and just make sure that I have shared my screen properly to include sound, which I hadn't done. So I will come back to this, and then if you can let me know that you can hear the sound, that would be great.
Yep, can hear the sound.
Yeah, okay, perfect.
The sensory room is really good for Alex and Charlotte when they come in. It gives them a chance to watch the game and not be overwhelmed by the crowd noises and just the expectations of what you need to be at a football game. It's nice for them to just be themselves in the sensory room, have all the toys, have the choice of watching, or they can mess around for 5 minutes doing whatever they really need to.
The room is designed for anybody that has sensory needs. You cannot hear much from the outside, and they can decide what to do in the room. They can decide to be by the window and watch the match with the family, or they can just decide to explore.
As you can see with that, there's a lot of, non-football related stuff in there. There's also football related stuff. They can watch the match from inside the room. They can watch from outside the room. They've also got it on the live screen TV as well. So they've really sort of provided a great experience in that sensory room to allow, families that have children who are neurodivergent, or those people that are neurodivergent, to be able to still participate in a Chelsea football game, whilst still enjoying the environment they're around as well. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second just so I can get back to my slides. If I can figure out how to do so. There we go. And we're back. There we go. Cool. So here's, and this is not an inclusive list. There is a lot of other clubs and stuff that are doing different things, but I just want to pick out these three with a couple, different types of programs. So Wrexham FC, like I said before, have autism-friendly match days. So they do a lot of work with a local organisation to make sure that their venue and their match day is autism-friendly. They allow people who attend the match to have autism to have access to the entire stadium. So they're not confined to one sitting bay, for example, so that if they want to roam around, they're more than able to. Whereas a lot of times, if you've bought a ticket, you have to sit in your seat and you can't move around. They allow people to be a lot more flexible. They do a lot of autism awareness as well. They raise money on the day. They have their ball delivery person is through the autism charity that they work with. And so it's a really important sort of day for Wrexham to raise awareness, but also to encourage people that have autism, or families that have children with autism, to allow them to come to a football match and watch that game and have an enjoyable experience. Everton FC have an ADHD program. So they've set up with a local organisation an ADHD support hub, and they provide educational services and support for people who have ADHD, and specifically around those that have been diagnosed over the age of 18, because it can be sometimes quite confronting when you're an adult, and you're 45 and just been diagnosed with ADHD, and a lot of your life now makes sense, but also you're now like, what do I have to do, and how do I live with ADHD? And so Everton have got a really good program through their community program to have that support hub available, and it's not just for Everton FC fans either, it's for the community as well. And then Blackburn Rovers have a really cool adult neurodiversity service. I've got some things written down about them. So they provide some peer support groups and one-on-one support as well for people who have neurodiversity. They provide information, advice, and guidance. They help to build and develop life skills. They do some group-based social and leisure activities. They do some behavior management support and workshops, and they also help with employment support and workshops as well. So they work a lot with people over the age of 18 to provide this service for those that are neurodivergent, to assist them within in the community, but also to build that sort of your community trust and fan base, so that hopefully it converts them to Blackburn Rovers fans as well. So perfect. So in conclusion, sensory rooms are vital for sports teams and tournaments to better the fan experience, provide equal opportunities to access live sport. It's 2025 now. There really shouldn't be an excuse for any sports team or tournament to not have a sensory room if they're a professional club or tournament. And I think it's really important that teams that don't already start to look into this, because it's going to be a big piece, coming up in the future. And then sports teams should be a lot more inclusive, as it leads to enhanced community belonging, mental health, and well-being, and providing access to sport as well. So thank you so much for listening. Please feel free, if you have any questions, to shoot them my way. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much for a very interesting talk in terms of neuro-inclusivity in sports. I did have actually quite a lot of ideas of all sorts of reflections on my own. But before I share my reflections or offer you a question, I was wondering if anyone has a question or a reflective point to provide. Yes.
Maybe I will go. Yeah. So again, a great presentation, Samuel. Just I was wondering, because I'm also like into sports and professional sports like football. For example, you might have adults with no diversity, because, for example, the video shown is mostly kids, or for mostly families who want to watch the game with no diverse kids. So that's kind of the service for it. But what if someone who's like neurodiverse, let's say an adult, for example, or even a kid, but who wants to participate, like, be like in the stand when it's like that, but he's just like, with sensory, sensitivity. So is there like maybe like a future, like a solution for that? Maybe like, make a stand like special for them, like maybe close to the pitch. I don't know. That's just something I was wondering.
Yeah, so there are some clubs that have specific sections. A lot of them they have it as a disability sections, but you can also apply to be in there if you are neurodivergent as well. So you can get close to the stadium, or to the pitch. I don't know whether they would ever do it as an entire stand. I don't know whether the demand would be there, but I know that usually for sensory rooms they have a seating area out the front, that if you still want to be a part of the stadium, you can sit in that area, and then if it gets too overwhelming, then you can go back into the sensory room. But those sensory rooms are designed for all ages and ranges of people. I think it's really important thing to note that you can be an adult who's neurodivergent, and you can make use of those sensory rooms.
Brilliant. Thank you. Do we have any more questions? Yes, Kirsty, over to you.
Yeah, so really interesting. Also, I didn't know that they existed. It's really good, because I know, like, for example, at theme parks, I know they do a lot of things, and there's some parallels, I suppose, there. But I guess my question is, like, how do people access the sensory rooms? How are they advertised? How people know about them? Who can access them? Do you have to pay extra? All of those little questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll take the Wembley one, for example. So the Wembley one is on their website. If you search Wembley Stadium's sensory room, it comes up. I'm pretty sure you have to email like a person at Wembley Stadium and get in contact with them. The tickets are charged as per normal stadium tickets. You don't have to pay extra. It's just like you'd be paying for a seat in the stadium. They do sell out very quickly at Wembley Stadium, and there are other venues like Stamford Bridge. I'm sure they would sell out at the start of the season. For the tournament that I'm currently working on, at the Rugby Women's World Cup, we're not going to have a booking system. So instead, we'll make it known to people that we have a sensory room available at the stadium, and if they need to use it, to come speak to a steward or a member of staff, and then they will direct them into the room. And so that way we won't really have a booking system or like a ticketing system. But yeah, a lot of the times it's advertised on their website. I think probably there could be a lot more work done in terms of promoting those, but also a lot of the times they are quite small, so the club might be a bit conflicted in terms of they don't want to over promote it, because then they'll get lots of people coming and not be able to fulfill the demand. So I think it's a fine line between trying to promote it but also not running out of space.
That's really interesting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much for the question, Kirsty. So Tahir's said I didn't know they existed, and he also has a question in terms of, do I need a formal diagnosis to use a sensory room?
That's a great question to hear. The ones that I've run, you haven't. You just tell us that you need to use a sensory room. We've directed you to the sensory room. I'm not sure if you're booking through a club or through Wembley Stadium, for example, whether you may need to provide it if you're booking ahead. Or the ones that I've worked on have just been, if you've needed it, you've used it.
Great. And I have one final question to close the event. So my question to you, whilst you're presenting, I was actually thinking, especially in terms of the mental well-being sort of element side of things, do you think, especially considering, for example, a lot of, as you mentioned, for example, when possibly some people with autism who have sensory overload in terms of hearing think of sports and think of the environment, they're less likely to sort of want to venture in terms of looking into sports and picking that up as a hobby or even as an interest point because of the experience that they may have. Do you think there could be a way that these sorts of clubs could work with local schools at all in terms of working together to sort of develop that? How am I asking this? So develop that sort of collaboration and that sort of interest for neurodivergent school students who may benefit from this.
Sorry, I forgot I was on mute. Yeah, I think it is really important for them to work closely with local schools and sporting clubs as well. That's not to say they don't already. I don't think I can confidently say that they're not, doing that through my research. But for example, for Wrexham, they work with local charities and also local community groups as well in order to raise awareness for their Autism Day and to bring people there as well. So I definitely think it is a massive piece, and those children in schools are captive audiences for them to go in and be like, if you are neurodivergent, we have this space available, and we also have a partnership with a local community club that also has potentially a quiet space available at the club as well, and you can kind of connect the dots and say, well, you can come watch us and support Chelsea, you poor thing, for example, and then also be a part of a community sports team as well.
Great, thank you very much. So once again, I want to thank both Sam and Bilal for such illuminating talks, such illuminating discussions on personality and autism and sports and sensory rooms and neuro-inclusivity as well. So